Another wannabe playing dress-up in a SEAL uniform, disgraceful. That's what the old vet in row 3 muttered loud enough to sting. But the woman standing at the front didn't flinch. She wasn't clapping, she wasn't crying, she was just standing, still, like she belonged to the flag, not the crowd. Her uniform was spotless, her boots worn just right, and the way she stood. Only people who fought to stay alive know how to stand like that. Then the Master Chief saw it. Just beneath her sleeve, a trident tattoo etched with faint runes. He stopped cold. That ink shouldn't exist. They buried everyone who had it. Minutes later, military police had her in cuffs. She said just one thing. "Tell Admiral Graves." Elena Wren is still alive. Ever known someone who was never officially there, but changed everything anyway. Leave a candle, and if you want more stories, they tried to erase subscribe, before they try again. The holding room was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that soothes, the kind that listens. Elena sat in it like she'd been there before. Same posture, same breath, same silence. Almost like it was part of the routine. Across from her, the agents weren't sure what to do. They had her fingerprints, a scan of her face, a DNA swab. All of it led nowhere. No record, no military file, no background. It was like she'd never been born. Except, she knew their protocols. Knew which security camera would blink first. Knew that the older agent's badge was clipped on wrong regulation break section 4.3. She didn't speak. She observed. Until one of them finally said it out loud, "There's nothing. Not even a ghost trail." The younger one leaned in, voice low, confused. "Who are you?" Elena blinked once. I was someone the system needed. Until it didn't. And then a facial match pinged on the screen behind them. Not full, just a sliver. 73% match. Samantha Wren. Status KIA. Syria 2012. But the woman in the chair, she was breathing, and she wasn't done yet. The photo sat folded in her boot, sealed in plastic, yellowed by heat and time. They hadn't found it during processing. She made sure of that. Later, when the lights dimmed and the agent stepped out, Elena reached down, pulled it from the inner seam, and unfolded it. One image. Torn. Two figures once stood in that frame. Now only half remained. The left side showed her much younger. Eyes sharper, mouth softer, dust and sweat across her face like war paint. The other half had been ripped clean away, deliberately. She stared at that void longer than she meant to, then ran her thumb across the ragged edge. "You were supposed to stay dead," she murmured, almost too quietly for even the walls to hear. But something had shifted when she saw that trident tattoo on herself again. Something that belonged to them, the 6 of them. Project 13 wasn't just Black Ops, it was a bond. A unit buried deeper than any grave, and someone had started digging. They thought she'd forgotten, but ghosts remember. She hadn't spoken that name out loud in over a decade. Not because she forgot it, because saying it meant admitting it had existed, and it wasn't supposed to. Project 13 was the name on the file, but that's not what they called themselves. In the field, behind enemy lines under blackout radios without insignia or rank, they were known as Cerberus. Not by command, not by paperwork, only by each other. 6 of them, each trained to disappear before they ever appeared. No families, no past, no future beyond the next mission. They were designed to be weapons, not memories, but someone had remembered, and that was the problem. She folded the photo, slid it back into her boot. The agents would be back soon. They thought they were questioning a woman out of place. What they didn't know was that the last living piece of Cerberus had just woken up. She once believed they all died in war. That was the clean version. The version with folded flags, hollow rifle salutes, and names etched into marble no one would visit. But that belief started cracking the moment she opened the drive. Cerberus didn't die on the battlefield. They died in house fires, single-car crashes, training accidents. All too neat, all too quiet. Killian, the loudest of them, the one who always questioned command, burned in a 2-room apartment with no history of electrical faults. He used to say if we ever start dying off one by one, it's not the enemy pulling the trigger. Back then, she laughed it off. Now she couldn't stop hearing it. Elena leaned forward in her chair. The photo in her boot felt heavier, like it knew something she hadn't admitted yet. Maybe this wasn't about survival anymore. Maybe it never was. She wasn't the only one still breathing. She was just the only one making noise. He had a name once, but in the unit they didn't use names. only call signs. He was Talon, the one who saved her life in Istanbul, the one who made her laugh in between airstrikes, the one whose body was never recovered. Officially, he died in 2012. Drone strike northern Syria. Cerberus had been disavowed 2 weeks before. But the problem with ghost units is, when a ghost disappears, no one checks for a pulse. She hadn't looked at his half of the photo in years, hadn't let herself wonder. But now, with Cerberus being erased one by one in ways that felt more surgical than accidental, the silence around Talon's death felt different. Too clean, too distant, too convenient. She stood up from the metal chair slowly. The cuffs had already been removed. No one was watching now. "If he's alive," she whispered. Then someone kept him that way, and the question that followed was worse. Why? They didn't announce it, didn't ring any alarms, no shouting, no red lights, just a quiet hallway outside the holding room, and a single junior officer on a secure line. "Sir?" It's her, a pause on the other end, then a voice deep and weathered, measured like a man who had buried too many secrets. What did she say? The officer hesitated. She said, "Tell Admiral Graves Elena Wren is still alive." Another pause, longer this time. Then understood. Far away in a secure room behind layered clearance codes, Admiral Michael Graves stood still, not surprised, just bracing. He walked over to a locked drawer, entered a code no one else had used in 13 years. Inside was a single file, unmarked, sealed in red. The words on the tab were barely legible from where, Cerberus Deep Void, Level Omega. He placed a hand on the folder. Not to open it, just to feel the weight of it. Then he whispered to the empty room. "She's awake." And somewhere something old began to stir. The folder was heavier than it looked, not because of the paper, because of what it erased. Graves laid it gently on the steel table as if afraid it might burn through the surface. No label, no seal of approval, just a faded red stamp across the front. Deep Void. Eyes only. He opened it. Inside, no mission reports, no names, only code names. Viper, Talon, Echo, Reaper, Mantis, Ghost, and one directive typed on yellowing paper. Project Cerberus, activated under Omega Contingency Protocol. Authorization bypassing standard command chain. Operators selected for deniability, expendability, non-existence. No medals, no memorials, no second chances. Cerberus wasn't a unit. It was a gamble. A move made by men too powerful to play by rules but too scared to act alone. They needed shadows to do their dirty work. And now one of those shadows was standing in daylight. Graves stared at the names. Only one wasn't marked KIA. Only one still flickered between dead and alive. Viper. He closed the folder. His jaw clenched. Someone made a mistake letting her surface, and someone else was going to make a bigger one trying to push her back under. The USB drive was no bigger than a thumb, wrapped in weather-sealed plastic, tucked behind the lining of her uniform, like it was part of her body. She waited until the room emptied again, slid it into the station terminal, typed one word, Cerberus. It didn't ask for a password. It already knew her. Folders blinked to life. Encrypted kill orders, time-stamped, signed, some labeled critical, others cleansed. Each name was once a ghost like her, each crossed out in bloodless font. She scrolled slowly until she found her own. Viper. Status active. Termination window. 24 HRs. Location Norfolk, VA. She exhaled once. No panic, no shock, just confirmation. They hadn't come for her yet, but they would. The system didn't forget Cerberus, it just waited, until it was safe to erase the last one properly. She traced the metadata, line by line, no emotion, just habit. Whoever authorized the hits, they hadn't tried to hide it. They didn't think anyone would ever look. Then the signature appeared. Encrypted, but familiar. E. Kine. Codename from a past she thought buried. She froze, not out of fear, but out of memory. Edward Kane, her original handler. CIA. Tier 1, Black Projects. Declared KIA, Syria, 2015. She saw the flames, the wreckage, his blood on her shoulder. She watched him die. So either someone forged his access, or Edward Kane didn't stay dead. She stared at the screen. Didn't move. If Kane was alive, This wasn't just a cleanup, it was a purge, and someone was crossing names not for secrecy, but for revenge. The screen still glowed. Kane. Alive. Elena exhaled slowly as if every breath was weighted in ash. She walked to the closet, pulled out a rusted metal case. Her hands didn't shake, but they should have. Inside, a custom comms device last powered in 2012, still scarred from Istanbul. She clipped it open, flicked the switch. Old circuits buzzed to life. The screen blinked once, then again, then flashed red, channel Cerberus 0, encrypted, active. She stared at it. Only 6 devices in the world could respond. 5 had gone dark. 1 might still listen. She typed call sign V2, code black. Kane's alive, need status, static. Then 3 words returned. V4, listening, move, now. She didn't smile, but she did whisper, at least one ghost still breathes. The reply blinked once. V4. Listening. Move. Now. But Elena was already moving. She killed the signal, slipped the device into her coat, and grabbed the burner phone. From the cracked window of her rented room, she saw it, the gray SUV, still parked. But now the driver's door was open. She caught a flash of movement. A man, tall, buzz-cut, wearing civilian black. Too casual, too still, and the glint metal under his arm. Not CIA, not FBI, she whispered. Private. Contracted. He wasn't just watching. He was waiting for the kill order. She scanned the fire escape. Too exposed. Then she did what only someone trained by Cerberus would do. She walked straight out to the front door. A moment later, the man glanced up and froze. She was gone, but the game had started, and Elena had no intention of losing it twice. 2 blocks away, Elena crouched in the alley between a laundromat and a pawn shop. She doubled back through service corridors, climbed dumpsters, moved like vapor. Now she knelt behind a rusted vent and uploaded the man's photo from earlier. The burner's cracked screen flickered. She ran the face through a shadow contact in old Cerberus frequency. Ping. Response in 43 seconds. The reply hit harder than expected. ID confirmed. Eric Marston, ex-CIA. Transferred to Vanguard Solutions 2017, and then below it, connected to E. Kane. Elena stared at the name. Her fingers clenched. Kane, the man Cerberus buried in Syria. The man she watched die. Unless someone lied. Or worse, he never died at all. Her breath slowed. If Kane was alive. Then every Cerberus operative was already dead, except her, and now she knew they weren't just watching, they were hunting. Back at the Pentagon, under a red-lit vault room labeled Access Ultra Black, Admiral John Rourke stood in silence. Before him, a sealed file flickered open on the monitor, Cerberus, Alpha, Omega. No names, no dates, only 6 call signs. Viper, Talon, Ghost, Reaper, Mantis. Echo. 5 marked KIA. 1 active. Viper. His hand hovered over the mouse, hesitating. Then a notification flashed. Unauthorized facial match attempt detected. Location, Pensacola. Target, Elena Vega. Rourke's jaw tightened. She was alive, and she wasn't hiding anymore. He picked up a secure line. No greeting. She surfaced. I want eyes on her yesterday, and if Kane's ghosting the system again, we're already too late. Silence crackled on the other end. Then a voice. You sure it's her? Rourke answered without blinking. No one else would walk into the crosshairs and smile. Elena crouched by a rusted metal crate inside the abandoned Florida warehouse, an old SEAL fallback spot. Dust coated everything. But behind the false wall, her past waited. She pried open a lockbox marked C02, Viper. Inside, her old Cerberus gear, a scratched comms device, and a photo. 6 figures in shadows, 5 dead, 1 left. She slid a fresh mag into her sidearm and activated the comms unit. It buzzed, then cracked to life. A voice, stiff, cautious. This frequency's been dead for 13 years. Identify. She answered evenly. Viper, active. Kane's alive. So is the list. Silence. Then, understood. What's your play? She stared at the photo fingers brushing over the faded edges. Make noise. Let them know the ghost is watching. Across the country, in a glass-walled office disguised as a private consulting firm, Edward Kane stood silently. The screen before him glowed cold with Elena's reactivated signal. She's awake, he muttered. Behind him, a man in a suit adjusted his tie. She shouldn't be. Cerberus was sealed. Kane didn't look back, his jaw clenched as he scrolled through satellite pings. Photos, logs, Elena at the ceremony, the warehouse, too visible. "She wants us to find her," the aide said nervously. "She's baiting you." Kane finally turned, smirking darkly. "Good. Let's bite." He picked up a phone, no keypad, just one red button. "Activate protocol, reclaim. Target Viper, go full shadow. No survivors." He watched Elena's signal flicker on the map. His finger tapped the glass. "Let's finish what we started." That night, Elena returned to the safe house, a derelict machine shop buried behind a scrapyard on the edge of Jacksonville. From the outside, it was nothing. Inside, dust. Silence. A memory. She crouched near a rusted panel in the floor and pried it open. The lockbox was still there, untouched since 2012. Inside, her custom Cerberus sidearm, a cracked communicator, burner IDs, and a photo, 6 faces half smiling in a desert no one dared to name. She ran a hand across them. Ghost, Reaper, Wraith, Mantis, Talon. All gone. She clipped her weapon to her thigh, loaded 2 mags, slid the photo into her vest over her heart. Then she pulled out something no one was supposed to have, a military-issue hard drive. Untraceable. Untouched. Labeled Cerberus. Eyes only. The screen blinked to life. Password. Her fingers didn't hesitate. Viper 06. Access granted. The drive whirred. Dust fell from the ceiling as if even the building didn't want this opened. Lines of code blinked decrypted. Then folders, dates, names, and a phrase she hadn't seen since Istanbul. Void Operative Level Omega. She clicked deeper. Each file was a grave. Operations that never existed. Photos blurred. Faces redacted. But the voices were still there, fragments of field comms stitched in static. Target confirmed. No survivors, package clean. Authorization, Kine. Elena froze. That voice. It wasn't just Kane giving orders, it was him on the ground. Executing. He hadn't just betrayed them. He had led the purge. One folder pulsed red, encrypted. Last modified 3 weeks ago. She hovered over it. Cerberus Renewal, Phase 2. The folder opened. Slowly. As if the system itself hesitated to show her. Inside, recruitment logs. Psych evaluations, mission simulations, all dated within the last 18 months. Elena scanned the file headers. Reaper 2, Arizona. Talon 2, Djibouti. Viper 2, unassigned. She blinked. They weren't just building a new team, they were cloning the old one. Same codenames, same training regimens, same directives. Except one difference. Phase 2, controlled deployment. Full obedience guaranteed. These weren't soldiers, they were replacements, rewired, reconditioned, programmed. Elena leaned back, heart-steady thoughts racing. Cerberus wasn't a relic, it was a prototype, and now someone had decided the original model had lived too long. Coordinates were buried deep in a test folder. Elena decrypted them manually, letter by letter, as if the machine wanted her to feel every inch of betrayal. Sea Base South. Grid Echo 9. Outside El Paso. Desert, private property, off books. She packed in silence. 2 mags, a burner phone, and the drive. At dawn, she crossed the state line under the shell of a stolen transport van. By noon, she was in range. She watched from a ridge. Below steel hangars, patrol routes, men in black fatigues moving in perfect sync. Too clean, too fast. Then she saw a woman. Same stance, same posture, same tattoo, not imitation, replication. Cerberus hadn't been revived. It was being rehearsed, and somewhere inside that base her replacement was training to kill her. The wind shifted as Elena slipped through the breach, a narrow maintenance duct behind the south wall, just wide enough for a ghost. Inside, the air was still, sterile, like nothing had ever bled here. She moved past reinforced doors and soundproofed halls. Every inch screamed precision, not a base. A lab. She ducked beneath a biometric scanner. Cerberus taught her how to blind them, because Cerberus expected to be hunted. Voices echoed ahead. 2 instructors. Male. Calm. She recognized the cadence military but washed clean. Then laughter. Not cruel. Young. She edged around the corner. In the glass room beyond, 6 operatives moved in unison. Drills, weapon forms. No wasted motion. And standing at the center, a woman, same height, same build. Back turned. Then she pivoted. Elena stared into her own eyes, only colder, only rewritten. Elena didn't breathe. Across the glass, the replica moved with lethal grace. She turned, scanned the room once, then stopped. Her eyes landed exactly where Elena stood. They locked eyes, not in recognition, in calibration. It was like watching a recording of herself, but sharper. No hesitation, no ghosts in the gaze. The clone tilted her head slightly like testing a silhouette. Then she turned back as if Elena had passed some invisible scan. Behind her, an instructor spoke into a comms mic, Viper 2, showing stable pattern sync. Next phase authorized. Elena backed into the corridor, heartbeat steady. This wasn't about identity anymore. This was about control, and someone somewhere was about to learn the original didn't forget how to break the pattern. Elena moved deeper. Every hallway looked the same mirror-clean fluorescent white. No signs, no numbers, only control. She found a security console tucked behind a locked operations bay. Keycard locked. No problem. She bypassed the panel in 12 seconds. Cerberus had taught her faster ways to break doors than open them. Inside, banks of monitors, live feeds, training routines, biometric tracking, and at the center command node Viper 2. She tapped in. Password prompt. She typed one name, Kane. Access granted. There he was, Edward Kane, listed not as former handler, but as director. Of what Elena scrolled and stopped. Cerberus, Phase 2 Reclamation Protocol, Target V1, Status, Active Pursuit. She read it again. They weren't hunting her as a threat, they were hunting her as a glitch. She stared at the words V1 Active Pursuit. Status glitch. They didn't call her enemy, they called her broken code. Elena's fingers hovered over the terminal. She found the root directory, hidden deep beneath 3 firewalls and a ghost-level encryption key. She smiled. Kane hadn't changed the core protocol. Arrogance always leaves the back door unlocked. She typed, Override Cerberus Star Origin V1 Priority. Inject Divergence Patch. Disable Pattern Sync. 1 stroke. And every clone in training would hesitate 1 breath too long. 1 flicker too human. She pressed Enter. Across the base, the lights blinked. Brief, subtle, but enough. And far below in the training chamber, Viper 2 paused mid-strike. Eyes twitching, hands uncertain. The seed had been planted, and Elena. She was already gone. In Langley, Kane stood alone in the control room. Alarms hadn't sounded, but something felt off. He watched the feed, Viper 2's hesitation. A blink. Too human. Too early. His eyes narrowed. She's in the system. He didn't shout, just turned to the override console, swiped his ID. Engage protocol clean sweep. Wipe every Phase 2 node. Operatives included. Containment priority 1. No survivors. The tech beside him hesitated. Sir, there are still active. I said sweep it. Across the training facility, lights went red. Operatives froze, then locked. Gas vents hissed. Elena, already 2 corridors away, heard it. Felt the change in the air. Not panic, just purpose. Kane wasn't covering a breach. He was burying the future, and she was still inside. Elena moved fast. The red lights pulsed like a countdown. Gas hissed through ceiling vents. Sirens low contained. This wasn't panic. This was protocol. She reached the lower training bay. Viper 2 was still inside, frozen mid-form, eyes twitching, chest rising like she was remembering something. That was never hers. Elena smashed the override panel, glass shattered, lock disengaged. The clone turned sharply. Blade drawn instinct. Elena raised both hands. I'm not here to kill you. Viper 2 stared, breathing uneven. I know your face. Her voice cracked, but it's not mine. The gas curled at their feet. Elena stepped forward. They made you in my image, but you still get to choose who you become. She offered her hand. A beat. Then Viper 2 took it, and they ran. Together. They ran. Smoke thickened behind them, white at first, then gray. A purge in stages. Elena led Viper 2 close behind. No words. Just breath. Just muscle memory. The fire exit was 3 corridors east, sealed from outside command. She'd disabled the lockdown 5 minutes earlier, just in case. Explosions echoed below, controlled surgical. Kane wasn't letting anything walk out. They reached the outer tunnel. Rust, earth, moonlight. But as they reached the gate, Viper 2 stopped. "Why me?" Elena turned, her voice steady. "Because you blinked." Behind them, the building groaned metal folding into heat. They stepped into the night shadows swallowed by headlights. One van. No markings. Engine running. Inside, an old voice through radio static. "If you're hearing this." Cerberus isn't dead. Not yet. The voice crackled again. "This message is set to trigger if Protocol Clean Sweep reaches full threshold. If you're alive, you were never meant to be." Elena gripped the console. She knew that voice. Ghost. Codename G1. Cerberus Recon. Confirmed KIA Yemen 2011, but he was here. In code. Prepared. "Kane didn't just betray us," the voice said. "He was never one of us." A file auto-loaded. Surveillance footage. 2009. Kane shaking hands with a civilian contractor. Vanguard Solutions. He'd been planted from the start. Cerberus wasn't corrupted. It was built to burn. Viper 2 leaned forward, whispering, "Then who trained us?" Elena didn't answer. She just stared at the screen, jaw locked. Time to stop running. They crossed into D.C. before sunrise. The air felt thinner there, not from altitude, but from lies built too high to breathe. Viper 2 stayed silent, clutching the drive Ghost left behind. Inside, clearance codes, black routes, floor schematics. Elena drove. Destination Vanguard headquarters, top floor, private access, Kane's den. She wore no armor, only the original Cerberus tag on her wrist, the one they all burned off. She kept hers, as a reminder. "What if we don't make it?" Viper 2 asked. Elena looked through the windshield, eyes sharp, voice level. "Then we make sure they remember why they were afraid of ghosts. The city swallowed them whole, but this time they were the ones bringing the fire." The elevator stopped at the 67th floor. No alarms, no guards. Kane didn't need them. He thought he'd already won. The doors slid open. He was waiting, alone. Whiskey untouched on the desk. Elena stepped in. Viper 2 behind her, silent. Kane smiled like a man who built gods and lost count. "I gave you purpose, Viper. I made you immortal." She raised the sidearm. Didn't speak. Viper 2 stepped beside her, eyes locked on Kane. He looked at the clone. "You're not her," and for the first time the clone blinked. Kane flinched. Elena fired once. No speech, no pause. He fell. Outside, dawn broke. They didn't stay for the cleanup. Just one line left in the dark before they disappeared again. "Ghosts don't live forever, but they never die quiet, fade to black."